Hello everyone, my name is Halcyon and I would like to welcome you to the Halcyon Colony. Before we begin, I have something to say about this tutorial. You've tried the rest, now try the best. Spacer's choice. I originally planned to livestream this game when I initially played it, but fortunately I first wanted to test things out. It's a good thing I did, otherwise you would have just seen me die 50 times in the first few hours because, like the genius I am, I only play games on their hardest difficulty. Supernova in this case. An appropriate name for a difficulty that makes you want to set fire to your gaming rig. If there's such a thing as a silver lining to dying so many times, is that I have figured out the ins and mostly outs of the combat system, learned to stay alive during a shootout and be victorious over those who tried to kill me, and actually succeeded about 100 times. Unlike other games that offer such difficulty settings like Fallout 4 Survival Mode or Kingdom Come's Hardcore Mode, Supernova is brutal, so I'm going to discourage you from playing on it. But if you insist, my advice should prevent you from dying 150 times like I did. First we need to discuss how Supernova changes things from the base game. Survival mechanics are being introduced, requiring you to maintain your health by regularly eating, drinking and sleeping. If you neglect these needs, your fitness will decrease, leading to poor performance in combat, among other activities. Saving is extremely limited, so you'll have to be careful how you manage your progress in between autosaves. Fast travel to anywhere but your spaceship is also disabled. You'll have to walk everywhere else. In a way, the ship can be considered your mobile base of operations, as it grants you access to its storage facilities, a bed, a workbench and a respecialization machine, as well as acting like a home for your companions. The combat challenge also gets ramped up as the aggression of your enemies is maximized, as well as the damage they deal. This led to me dying about 200 times. Luckily, hostiles aren't bullet sponges, and a well-executed ambush may just be what you need to prevent your 260th death. The last change introduced in this difficulty is merciless and, in my opinion, the most unfair mechanic. Companion permadeath. Meaning, if your companions fall in battle, you're forced to either forfeit an hour of progress and reload your last autosave, or continue the rest of the journey without them. There are perks which increase your combat effectiveness when wandering solo, but leaving your companions behind hardly seems like a solution. But it's the only thing you can do for now. If I were to offer a suggestion, it would be a 10-second countdown when the companion falls in battle. If you rush to his aid, you can save his life, but if the 10 seconds expire, he'll bleed out. In my opinion, this would raise the stakes and force you to risk your life to save your companions, instead of just leaving them on the ship and robbing you of their companionship. But this is not my suggestion box, it's a survival guide, so let's get back on track. Everything listed so far are the problems you're about to face in Supernova. As for the solutions to these problems, we will methodically approach them one by one, but before we do, let's start from the foundation. Character creation. The very first choice you can make is in regards to your attributes. You can increase the ones you prefer at your leisure, but if you take them to below average, you are going to face penalties that may very well cripple you in this difficulty. If you absolutely need to maximize one attribute at the expense of another one, I guess Charm can be sacrificed as it has the least influence in combat. But if you do leave Charm at below average, go one step further and just randomize the look of your character. Make the face match the social skills. Because I primarily use stealth and guns, the 6 attribute points I get at the start are spread across dexterity, perception and temperament, for the obvious bonuses these stats offer to my playstyle. Next you have to choose your skills, which are placed into the categories of melee, ranged defense, dialogue, stealth, technical and leadership. At the start, you may develop 2 of these categories with 10 points each, and even though I use firearms, I choose to boost my stealth and technical first, for reasons I will elaborate later. Lastly, you gotta pick the job you've had before arriving to the Halcyon Colony, which isn't that important. I personally chose Food Additive Tester for the tiny bonus of food effects lasting longer. And yes, each food and drink item you consume has certain bonuses. Carbohydrates enhance your natural healing, while proteins increase your max health. Then you customize or randomize the look of your character and you're done. Now to elaborate how skills work. Let's take melee weapons as an example. Each level invested into melee weapons increases your chances to deal critical damage. But you can see that for every 20 levels invested into a skill, there is a milestone that will offer certain bonuses. The first such perk for the melee skills is the ability to perform a heavy slam by holding the attack button. You may also charge a heavy after doing a light attack, which results in a sweep, but that is irrelevant. What is relevant for my build are the skills from the categories of ranged weapons, stealth and technical. You're going to want the first perk in all these categories, so rush them to level 20. That will be your baseline if you're using my playstyle. Eventually you'll want the first leadership perks too, but prioritize the others first. I have a feeling I said the word perk too often, and that's just for the skills. There's also player perks, companion perks, and so on, so you can turn my video into a drinking game if you want. Have a shot for every time you hear me say perk. Spacer's Choice does not recommend the consumption of alcoholic beverages during working hours, but if you do, choose 0G Brew. And hell, that's good for what ails you. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, I was trying to explain my character build. The most useful skill perks for combat are the first ones in the ranged category, which unlock the TTD location hit effects. I'll expand on how this mechanic comes into play when we talk about combat. Next up, the sneak perk is too good to pass up, as the extra damage bonus can be the perfect way to start an ambush. The lockpicking and hacking perks aren't exactly meant for combat, but they can help you make loads of bits. That's the in-game currency, the money used across the Halcyon colony. And while bits don't directly help you in combat, they can be used to purchase weapons or mods or consumables, and they're directly used to upgrade your weapons and armor when you tinker with them at a workbench. Tinkering, by the way, can only be done once your science skill is at level 20. That's why you want your tech to be developed as well. The first perk in medicine is also of great help, as it allows you to put a second consumable in your inhaler, which is your main tool for healing. Along the Adreno, I also inhale a can of sal tuna every time there's an emergency. The extra 25% health can be just what saves me from certain death. Only inconvenience I have is that sometimes during combat I may use the inhaler more than once, and if I have a second consumable equipped, it is used even though I already benefit from its effect. Guess I'll just have to unequip that consumable on subsequent inhaler use. Anyway, when you slot additional consumables into your inhaler, their duration is increased based on your medicine skill. You can see that a high medical skill also increases the healing amount of your Adreno when used by the inhaler. This can pair nicely with the first perk of Determination. After these core skills are past level 20, I mainly prioritize raising my ranged weapon and stealth skills for the enormous bonuses they offer to my combat style. I also said you'll need the first leadership perks, because without them, your companions are more of a hindrance in combat. But in case you choose to dismiss companions altogether and not bother with this skill, there are character perks you can take to make you more effective in combat when venturing solo. Speaking of character perks, they're separated into 3 categories: Basic, Intermediate, and Advanced. You need 5 basics to unlock the intermediates and 5 intermediates to unlock the advanced perks. Since I barely managed to leave Emerald Valley after 350 deaths, I'm going to admit that I've only experienced the early game, so the only perks I'll recommend are from the basic category. The number 1 most important perk that severely reduced the frequency of my death is Toughness. When you perish so quickly, 50% extra health is a tremendous advantage. So it's the first one I recommend you pick as soon as you reach level 2. Next perk I take boosts the regeneration of my special ability, the Tactical Time Dilation. Quicken the Dead, I believe it's called. Third perk further enhances my TTD duration by 25%. Fourth one is Pack Mule for some extra carry capacity. And the fifth is The Negotiator, for a hefty discount when buying my precious plain and pure water. Now with 11% more natural water flavoring. As I level up and earn more points, they'll be spent on perks that further enhance this playstyle. Anything that boosts TTD, carry capacity, and vendor prices. You don't have to follow my build step by step, especially since I didn't even get to test it. But it's proven effective so far. Leveling up is not the only way to earn perk points. As I was scouring the geothermal power plant, being in tight quarters with automechanicals shooting at me from every direction caused me to develop robophobia. I could have shaken it off, but succumbing to it allowed me to grow stronger. Basically, as you wander the world, you will discover flaws within your character, which you can either ignore or accept. Accepting a flaw can, under certain conditions, lower your main attributes and therefore your skills, but rewards you with an immediate perk point. In the case of robophobia, 3 of my attributes immediately go down when I'm attacked by robots. I don't recommend you to accept these flaws, but if you do, know that once your skill reaches level 20 and unlocks a milestone, you cannot lose the perk no matter how much the skill decreases. Nor can you get more perks by artificially increasing these skills either. And yes, some pieces of armor and consumables can boost your skills, which can be nice. But if you're stuck at 19 science skill and you really want to tinker, just equipping your Spacer's Choice brand hibernation suit won't help, even though technically your science skill is now at 25. But there's things other than flaws that can decrease your attributes, such as hunger, thirst, or sleep deprivation. And even though Spacer's Choice offers many options to tend to the first 2 problems, the third can only be solved by having a good night's sleep in your spaceship's bed. If you feel it's not your bedtime yet, you can put the effects of fatigue on hold by having a caffeinated drink. But doing this doesn't rest you. As soon as the caffeine effects expire, your exhaustion will return in full force and you will eventually need to rest. Sleep is also necessary for healing a sprained leg or a concussion, which can be the nasty results of a close encounter with a primal behemoth. Assuming, of course, you've survived that encounter. These injuries can be pretty nasty as they can lower your strength and therefore your carry capacity, or they can slow your attack speed and even the rate of fire of your weapon, so if the injuries are piling up, just go to bed. Allow me to correct myself. Earlier I've said that we'll methodically discuss solutions to all these problems, and it seems I've already named hunger the first one. That is a mistake. The first problem, if you've randomized your looks, is your face. The solution is a helmet. And this option turned on. All the time. No exceptions. Problem number 5 is saving your progress. From what I've noticed, every time I step into Edgewater or any other closed-off area, my game autosaves. So every time I felt I made some progress, I went back to Edgewater for my daily autosave ration. One other saving method you can abuse is fast traveling to your ship. As you leave, your game saves to the location you fast traveled from, so if you don't want to walk all the way back, load the save you just made. Then, if you die, you have a save close by. I fear this might be patched soon, maybe even before I finish this guide, so I don't know how useful this tip might be. The next bit of trouble is travel. As I've already mentioned, fast travel is only possible towards your ship, so if you value your time, you can take the Cheetah perk. 20% sprint speed might be what you need to save yourself a bit of time. Like they always say, time is money. But money is also money, so I can't dismiss the discount perk in favor of the one that increases my speed. It depends what you value more. If you chose to run faster, you clearly don't value money just as much, so just donate them to me instead. Problem number 7 can only be solved through proper combat tactics, which we will discuss at length as soon as we've solved problem number 8, which is the fact that our dear companions go to Kingdom Come as soon as they've had one too many bullets. How do we stop this from happening? Well, if you choose to take them with you, all you can do is give them the best gear possible, give them a highly effective weapon such as the plasma rifle, increase their health with this companion perk, and take at least the first perks in both of your leadership skills. The first inspiration milestone unlocks the use of their special abilities, while the level 20 bonus of determination allows them to be healed as well when you use your inhaler. They only get healed by 30% of what you heal, but it's much better than nothing. One other thing I do to increase the life expectation of my companions is simply to set them to follow from very far away, only use their ranged weapons, and order them to be defensive. Then I tell them to sit tight behind a rock while I handle most of the enemies, and only if I feel overwhelmed do I give them the order to attack. Using their abilities can also buy you precious time, but you would put them at risk. I do believe that if your companions fall in battle, you might be able to revive them with this "Don't Die on Me" perk, but it will take you some time to unlock it. I've not progressed far enough in the game to test it, but seeing as it has a 15-minute cooldown, I think that's what it's meant for. Everything I've said so far teaches you how to survive, and now, to deal with problem number 7, it's time you learn a few things about combat. Combat is rather straightforward. Smack, slice, and shoot your enemies and see them fall before you. That part cannot be taught, you either know it or you've never played a video game in your entire life, so there's no point in me telling you to shoot them in the face. You already know that. I already knew that. But I still died 362 times because in Supernova difficulty, just shooting or slashing ain't gonna cut it. No, what you need is the secret of life, and that secret is TTD. No, I mean TTD, which stands for Tactical Time Dilation. Living in suspended animation for 70 years changed your perception of time, and now you can use that ability to boost your reflexes and highly increase your effectiveness in combat. Before we talk about its main use, I need to say that you can use it to analyze your enemies if you aim at them and look at this window. This will show you important information such as amount of health, fighting style, as well as show vulnerabilities to various damage types. If something has more health than you can handle, just run. The information window also shows your target's level, so if your weapon's level doesn't at least match that, you are completely outclassed. Turn around and leave. Using this ability drains this purple bar you have below your health indicator. Activating TTD diminishes the bar slowly, moving drains it faster, and 3 shots from your trusty pistol completely depletes it. This is pretty good for scoring headshots and deal some extra damage, but time dilation is at its highest effectiveness after you've unlocked those gunnery perks I mentioned earlier. The TTD location hit effects. If you've played any of the Fallout games, you know you could use VATS to target various body parts, which would either result in a maimed arm, which would decrease the accuracy of your enemy, or would cripple the legs, severely reducing their movement speed. TTD LHE works in the same manner because, as you slow down time and aim, you can choose whether you'll blind your enemy with a headshot, maim his arm, cripple his leg, or inflict the status effect of your weapon by hitting center mass. When you headshot an enemy and blind him, your target will briefly get stunned, which gives you time to turn off TTD and fill him with lead. Same goes for every other body part you shoot during TTD. Against groups of enemies, I recommend crippling their legs and running to cover. As they hobble towards you, take them out one by one. Divide and conquer. Crippled body parts can be identified by this nerve-looking effect with a yellow glow. You can also use this crippling mechanic to save your life in a pinch if you're faced with no more than 3 hostiles. If your health is low, activate TTD, shoot their legs and use the remaining dilated time to use your inhaler. This little trick saved my life enough times for it to be a viable tactic. I call it the emergency healing. As I've said, if you use time dilation and target center mass, you will inflict the status effect of your current weapon on your target. You can see it written here. As an example, your first pistol can make the target bleed, which happens to be my favorite status effects because it causes my enemies to slowly but surely lose health. One tactic I use against groups of enemies is to cause each of them to bleed and then run away while humming the Benny Hill theme. I cannot do that here since I do not own the copyright, but you can feel free to do it yourself. Different status effects affect different enemies. For example, plasma burns through unarmored flesh, while shock damage is more effective against robots. And if you face a heavily armored target, get some corrosive damage. Another trick I wish I used before I died 365 times was simply taking cover. I mean, duh. If you're not exposed, the enemy can't really shoot you. Just do a quick scan of your surroundings, check your compass for any hostiles, and take appropriate cover. You may also position your companions behind cover if you set them to defensive or passive, and that will help keep them alive. While we're still on the subject of analyzing your surroundings, look at the ground. If you see these, try not to step on them. They're called landmines and they go boom. And while they may not kill you outright, the injuries they inflict can limit your combat effectiveness. I also have some tricks for when you're forced into melee combat. You can pull your melee weapon and block, but if your defense skills aren't high, that won't be much help. A faster way of dealing with an aggressive melee attacker is pistol whip the fucker, dodge backwards and keep shooting. Also, if you see any of these icons, it's time to take a break from combat and fix your gear because it's no longer as effective as it was advertised. Last but not least, you can further make use of your surroundings by shooting the conveniently placed explosive barrels and take out entire groups of enemies. I can't outright identify these, but they usually have some yellow glowy thingies on them. Sometimes bluey glowy thingies. Also, your reticle turns red when you aim at one, so don't hesitate to start a party with a bang. Anyway, these were my combat tips. Not a whole lot of them, but since I've started applying them, I've only died a couple more times, and that's because of mistakes I've made. Such as allowing myself to get hit by a primal behemoth, getting a concussion, and suddenly finding myself over-encumbered, because the injury decreased my strength. As I was overburdened, I couldn't back away fast enough before being pummeled into oblivion. Before we part ways, I'd also like to give you a free lesson in moral relativity. Stealing is bad, okay? Dying because you couldn't afford to buy a bottle of water is worse, so you'd best toss those 2 shoes away and stop being so goody all the time. Besides, the only difference between taking stuff and stealing it is you can't let anyone see you do the second. And oh boy, there's plenty of stuff to steal in Edgewater. What, that word got you uncomfortable? Fine, from now on we'll call it appropriation of pre-owned property. Let's give it an acronym. APOP. Not really catchy, but neither should you be when you're going APOP through town. Because this instructional is marketed as a starter guide, I'll only focus on the first zone, especially on the town of Edgewater. Besides the cannery, which can be rated for a fair amount of loot, I also want to notify you of some rich areas ripe for APOP. The warehouse at the landing pad is a very prosperous zone rife with containers which can hold plenty of valuable weapons and armor, among other things. But before you go in there, make sure your lockpick skill is up to par. Watch out for the guard patrolling it. It's best if you circle the midsection to keep him from seeing you, and looting containers as you move in a clockwise manner throughout the room. There are also some conveniently placed vending machines in this area, and if you possess the first hacking perk, you can sell your booty at them. This way, a nosy vendor won't suspect you of peddling stolen goods. But they're not stolen, remember? They're appropriated pre-owned property. As you loot across the colony, you will sometimes find pristine items, easily identifiable by this icon. Pristine gear is pretty much the same as regular gear, but it has more durability and, most importantly, higher value when sold. Never scrap pristine gear unless you already made a habit of burning your money. And yes, your gear can be scrapped either in the inventory or your workbench or directly from the looting container. Doing so can clear some precious inventory space as you travel towards the nearest vending machine and give you some weapon and armor parts which can be used to repair the gear you're using. By the way, vending machines can be found pretty much anywhere, even in this marauder camp. Speak of convenience, eh? What's even more convenient is the fact that you can add any items you're sure you want to sell to the junk category with a press of a button, and when you're next to the vendor, you can just bulk sell all of your junk items. This should go without saying, but you shouldn't leave anything behind because everything is more or less valuable. But I promised you 2 loot-rich locations. I won't give you any directions, just keep your eye on the footage recorded by my helmet cam as I rest my voice for a bit. In one of my old instructional videos, I referred to the practitioners of the noble art of APOP as wealth redistribution officers. I'm pretty sure that's a corporate position in the Outer Worlds. Anyway, I briefly mentioned that you can improve your gear and you can either do that by directly spending money to tinker on it or by installing mods. Armors have 4 mod slots, 1 for plating, 1 for skills, 1 for utility and 1 slot for a gadget. Because I've not played this game too much, I only found 0 gadgets in the world, so I can't rightly tell you what they do, but the best utility mode I can recommend is the backpack, which offers you 20 extra kilograms of carry capacity when installed. Companions may also boost your carry capacity, which is exactly why I take them with me in the first place. That and their banter. Weapons can be modded with a variety of gadgets from extended magazines to silencers to scopes. There's even magazines that can overheat your bullets and cause them to behave in the same way as plasma, turning your enemy into a big pile of ash. Some weapons, such as the Tesla cannon and shotgun, are completely garbage, but other guns, like the plasma rifle, are really damn good because of their ability to charge up several rounds and fire them all in a huge flaming ball which instantly obliterates my enemies. Couple that with TTD and you got an insta-kill machine in your hands. By the way, I may not have mentioned this, but TTD is drained per shot, which leaves fully automatic weapons at a disadvantage when you want to use this ability because of their low damage per shot. Their high rate of fire is useful to spray an enemy with bullets and pray that's enough to stop him from moving. I'd also talk about science weapons, but I've never encountered one because of my choice to work on this video instead of actually playing the game, so I can't recommend them. There are perks that boost their damage though. Anyway, as I squeeze my last 2 remaining brain cells together, I can come up with no more useful information that can help you survive the harshness of the supernova. This was all I've had to say, and I hope it was enough. By the way, corporate required me to ask you to subscribe to the channel. Don't do that though, unless you really enjoy the content. With all that said, I would like to show you footage from my 400th death, and thank you for watching. Enjoy your stay in the Halcyon colony. Halcyon out.